All right, this is Kendra with Trust TV, and I'm back with another video. This is going to be a historical video, and I'm just giving commentary. And I had to open up Pinterest really quickly to explain something, because a lot of misconceptions is done. I got a post on an Instagram where there was this black woman telling me about how there was Africans in America, and how she do believe Africans were here first, and da 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 da. So I want to start off by saying, just because somebody says when they come into America and the explorer says these people look like they are from Africa, doesn't mean that the people are from Africa. So I wanted to explain something. In the beginning, if you read the Bible, in the beginning, I want people to understand and get a visual aid. Now, what I'm showing you is different black countries. You have Russia here. You have some Asia that's going to be in this various black culture. You have some Scotland, Ireland. You have some American Indian. And the reason why I am showing these different diversities of cultures is because I want people to understand how brown-skinned people have been on every part of the world before anything was white. Now, if you read your Bible, right, you will know, matter of factly, this is not a black person, this is a Slavic. But I had that there nevertheless because her hair was nappy. She could have been albino. Nevertheless, I don't want to, you know what I mean? But I digress. She could have been a light-skinned black woman with nappy hair, right? Because we can make them pale. My sister's pale, light-skinned woman, if y'all seen other videos. But anyway, I digress. Going back to what I was saying. I want people to understand that so-called black people, brown-skinned people across the earth, we are not the same as white people. We are not the same as white people. And what do I mean like that? Because the earth started off with nothing but brown-skinned people, up until the point where Moses went to Egypt to give a plague to Pharaoh of leprosy. Up until that point, the earth was nothing but melanated people. There was no white man. He did not exist. Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. That does not mean that Shem and Japheth were white and Chinese. That means that though Ham, being the progenitor of dark races, not the Negroes, he was darker than his brothers, right? It could have just meant that he was either darker or in a hotter climate than his brothers. Not that they were light-skinned, but he was darker than even they, right? Doesn't mean they were white-skinned, because we got to understand white is a genetic mutation. It is not of a natural thing to be of a white complexion. That is a form of albinism. They do not have full albinism because they have enough melanin in their skin where they are not albino. Understanding that, you can understand that being of brown skin is diverse, meaning everything with brown skin does not belong to Africa, because there were different races of brown skinned people on the earth due to the fact that all of the earth started brown skin. Do I make sense? Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? The sons of Noah were three different brothers who had three different races of people who were all of a brown hue of complexion. Being brown skin is more diverse than white skin, because white people all come from the same thing. We do not. That is the difference about black and white. White people all come from the same family. Brown-skinned people don't. We made up the whole earth from three different brothers. We made up different races, and everything around the globe was brown skin. Everything around the globe was not pale skin. We can be so for instance, let me give you an example. If you go read Benjamin Franklin's Book of Mankind, he will let you know Russians were brown. Africans. He didn't say every Russian was an African. He didn't say that America was African wholly so. He did not say that Sweden and Austrian black people were African. So this lets you know there were a diversity of brown-skinned people that made up the body of the earth that were not African. He literally says in this book of mankind, do I got to pull it up? And I will. Let me pull it up. Here we go. Here we go right here with the read. Let me hydrate myself because it's going to be a long read. All right. Because he's talking about the Palestine Boers, right? Let's go to what he says about these Palestine Boers. Because a lot of times people, hold on, I'm going to have to come back and get it on full. Here we are. Since detachment of English from Britain sent to America will have their place at home so many supplied and increased so largely here, why should the Palestine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements and by herding together established their language, I hope I'm saying that right, language and manner to exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, right, not the white ones, the black ones, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of us Anglifying them, and will never adapt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. Now he's talking about hues of complexiones. For all the people in the back, what is he speaking on? Complexions, not nationalities, complexions of these nationalities, right? He goes, all of Africa is black and tawny. They dark skin, they dark brown, and they brown. That's what he's saying, because tawny just means brown. Asia is chiefly tawny. All right, so you got some brown skinned folk in Asia, right? America exclusive, not including the newcomers, wholly so. America too is black and tawny. And in Europe, they are also black and tawny. The Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, Swedes are generally of what we call swarthy complexion. What is complexion? To the face, what you see upon appearance, their complexion. He lets you know all these nations were brown skinned. We are not like white people. We are not like Asians. We are diverse because our brown skin has been on the earth longer, which means everything that is brown skin is not African. Because he lets you see clearly Africa was its own nation, yet and still Africa had brown-skinned people. So did Russia, so did Asia. He never told you that any of these nations were African. He didn't say African, blah, 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 yakety smackety. He didn't. He understood that there are brown-skinned people all across the world. He lets you know all these different individuals, different nations were all a brown-skinned people. All of them. And he lets you know that there were not a lot of white people, meaning, and he's talking about complexion. So there were not a lot of pale-skinned people on the earth. Black people and white people, if we're going to talk about them in these colors, We are not the same as white folk. We do not come from the same body. If you look at history, and as Benjamin Franklin was saying, there were different nationalities of brown-skinned people from Africa, Asia, to Europe, to America. We are not all African. We are not like white people, because the earth started off with only brown people until what? Until albinism came. Variants of albinism make it so that white people are not, in fact, albino, because they have enough melanin where they would not classify as an albino. I have a very light-skinned sister who almost looks like a white woman, as well as an older brother who people mistake him as a white man. He comes from two dark-skinned parents. We have albino in our family. My mother has a very light, almost white-skinned looking mother, who I know is not white at all, because both of her parents are dark-skinned. I have a history book of my family. I know they not white. So what I'm telling you is that black people that you see in America do not belong to Africa. You have to understand that being brown-skinned is more diverse than white. Whiteness is a genetic mutation. So when you're talking about white and black, what the hell are you talking about? We are not the same as white people. Stop trying to cast us as the same. The problem with white people and all these different races is that they will not differentiate or separate how they are, we are not. This will dispel and let you know being brown skin is more diverse than being white skin. White people tend to come from the same people. Asian people come from the same people, but not so us, because the world started off with just brown people. How do we know this? Because every nation under the sun always try to say they got an African or a brown skin ancestry. Just because somebody is brown skinned do not mean that they are African. That everybody does not come from Ham. Shem and Japhet are also brothers of Ham. We understand that they say progenitor of the dark races. That doesn't mean that Shem and Japhet were white. Because if you read your Bible, you know white people's skin being white didn't happen until Moses. Right? There was a lot of the Bible that happened before Moses. Just move out of the way and act like you can drive. Like, this is ridiculous when people can't drive. Right? And so I want people to understand that when you are talking about brown skin, stop speaking about it as a nation, because there are very different nations of brown skinned people. You cannot do that. We are not like white people. We are not like Asian people. Go ahead. We are not like Asian people. There are a diversity of brown skinned people in the world, because the nations of people around the world started off brown. So you will find that there are brown-skinned Asians, not because they're from Africa. It is because those nations originally started off brown. You will go to Russia and find brown-skinned Russians, not because they're African. They're not Afro-Russian. They were already originally brown. You will go to what is now called Latin America, right? And you will see those original Latins. And it's not because they're Afro-Latino that they're brown. They originally were brown to begin with. The whiteness is the albino parts that came from Slavic whites or any other nation that was Asian and had that albino defect in their gene, mating with or procreating in that landmass for such a long time that they became a bigger body of them. Right? There became more of them. And it isn't because that nation is all Slavic people that they're white. It is because they either made it in or increased in population with other immigrants that came into Latin America or North America or South America or Africa or wherever they at. Right, where you see a lot of white people. So what I want you to am I making sense? Please let me know in the comment section. Am I making sense? Black people and white people are different in that respect. Brown-skinned people have been on the earth longer than pale-skinned people, right? So when we are talking about brown and pale, you have to realize that we are more diverse, because there were all brown-skinned nations, as Benjamin Franklin talked about, on this earth longer than pale-skinned nations. Do you understand? The pale-skinned nations just came after Moses. After. Does that make sense? So everybody is not African that has brown skin. This is Kendra with Trust TV. Like, make sure you share and subscribe. I hope I made sense. I hope that people now understand what I'm saying. I pray that you get what I'm trying to explain. Stay up, stay blessed. Put God first above all else. Peace out. Bye.